Well, welcome everybody to the November Doctors NAACLS session. It's the first time we've done something like this, which I think was probably a little overdue. We generally do a NAACLS news post where we go over recent decisions by the board of directors, but we still expect to publish something like that within the next couple of weeks, hopefully before Thanksgiving. But considering some of the policies that the board settles on, it doesn't hurt posting the same thing more than once, so as many people catch it as possible. So as a reminder, and this is old news, if you've seen one of these NAACLS sessions before, but it's worth repeating that we are recording this on November 8th, 2021. And the reason we mention that is because we make these Dr. NAACLS sessions available on our YouTube page and our NAACLS news. So we want to timestamp these. So if somebody's watching this 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road, just a reminder to double check to make sure that the documents that are on the website when you're watching this are just go to the website for the most recent documents. We're referring to policies that have changed and documents that have since changed within the last month at this meeting. So we just want to avoid people watching this in the future and maybe seeing screen caps of older documents and thinking that some policies may not have changed. So long story short, contact staff or go to the website for the most up-to-date documents. Today's team, we are joined by Dr. Maribeth Flaws, who just became the board president as of the September meeting. As you may be able to tell from her background, we have not had a chance to update her Zoom virtual background, but we will do so. A lot of things are in flux directly after the board meeting. So also joining is Rusty Callaway, who's the program accreditation coordinator, and myself, I'm Mark Spence, program approval coordinator and volunteer services manager. So let's get into the board update. We're going to start with the application packet. Now, this is an item or a policy that changed in April 2021. So those of you who went through in the initial process may remember that you used to send us an application letter. We would send you an application form and then ask for your fee. You would fill out the form. We would then have you fill something else out, and you would wait, and we would tell you that was okay and have you fill something else out. And there was just a lot of back and forth that kind of extended the process. And after review, it kind of extended the process unnecessarily. So what we did after April of 2021 is took those individual components, the letter with your letterhead, the interest letter on letterhead signed by a CEO or somebody with fiduciary responsibility, the application itself, the application fee, the preliminary report, which includes the program official approval form, that is all in one packet. So as a new program director, if somebody on the call is starting a new program, you can skip past a lot of the back and forth and just prepare everything all at once and submit it. So we instituted that policy in April, and to kind of add a level of support and clarity to that, we developed a document that looks very similar to the self-study template to kind of provide some consistency of just familiarity of how we would like things submitted. So that was something that was approved and put in place at the September meeting, and we will start using that template immediately. Phlebotomy standard change. We had a standard change that as a follow-up of the April 2021 board meeting. So this is an item that went out to public comment. Russ will probably explain our public comment policy in a little bit. But we had an item that went out to public comment. Park reviewed some of the comments that were received and made changes to the proposed standard language in their recommendation to the board. And you will see that approved standard language here. So on the left, you see the public comment language, which went out in April. Park was adding 6 months, and they recommended initially the word training to be added instead of education. And after they received the public comments, they kept the 6 months and instead recommended instructional experience. And that has since been changed. This will not go out to public comment again. And this is effective immediately. And just one tiny thing, other parts of that substandard have not changed. I just included the relevant items for this slide. Russ, do you want to get into the items we will be releasing for public comment in the next couple of weeks?
Sure. So now usually just the standard changes go out for public comment, but we felt that these two items listed here were significant enough to go out as well. We have changing the clinical assistant designation to medical laboratory assistant. Then this change would apply to NAACLS documents only. And then also entry-level competencies for clinical assistant and phlebotomy programs. And these changes would bring competencies more up to date with the current expectations of professionals in those positions. Once public comment is released, we give 60 days for responses, which are then presented at our next committee meeting, where they will make a recommendation, which then goes to the board for final approval. And we are looking to get this out to the NAACLS News. I think Mark said to me before Thanksgiving, so be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Russ. The only tiny thing I would add to that is sometimes we will have program directors or committee members post calls for public comment onto the ASCLS listserv. We make sure to include this in our public comment language, but just remember, any public comment has to come to the NAACLS email on the designated specifically. Any discussion in the ASCLS listserv is not considered official public comment. The board approved an annual survey for DCLS programs. While the survey will be largely similar to the ones the rest of accredited and approved programs go through, since the DCLS aren't required to report outcomes, obviously it requires us to rethink the annual survey a little bit and what we will be asking DCLS programs. Those of you who filled out our annual survey for programs know that your outcomes and benchmarks are a huge component of that. That section is not in the DCLS standards at this time, so there is a little bit of different requirements we have to look at for those. That starts in fall of 2022 for programs in doctoral candidacy status and fully accredited programs. Also, as a reminder that the 2021 survey of programs, which is required for all accredited and approved programs, is due on November 15th. If you have not received your email for that survey, please contact notifications at nacls.org immediately so we can get that to you and you are not late on that item. I will hand it over now to Maribeth for an exciting announcement regarding our DCLS programs.
Yeah, super exciting. We have granted initial accreditation to the first DCLS program that applied, and that's the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston. So they are our first accredited DCLS program. Yeah, this is awesome. We've been anticipating these programs coming through the pipeline. We've got the standards since 2011. And this is a really great thing for our profession. And we're looking forward to the other programs that are in existence applying for accreditation in the future, as well as other schools developing similar programs. So thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Maribeth. We have a new program director vacancy policy. So while we have a standard currently that states NAACLS needs to be notified of changes in administration within 30 days, NAACLS never had a set policy of how long a program has to have another program director in place. And basically for a couple of reasons. First of all, we didn't see, until the last 5 years, we didn't see a lot of program director turnover. So it enabled us to be a little bit flexible because we understand that if a program director leaves in the middle of a semester and depending on the location of that program, it can be a challenge for programs to recruit and find somebody. Also, we reached out to our program accreditor colleagues, and there wasn't a consistent best practices. Accreditors hand this in a variety of different processes. But since we are seeing a lot of program director turnover right now, we found ourselves in a position where this kind of more customer service-based focus of a case-by-case basis was just leading to confusion and really just like complications. So upon the recommendation of members of both of our committees that formed a task force, the board of directors enacted the following policy, and this is effective January 1st, 2022. There's a lot of if this, then that, so I will try to walk through this as clearly as possible. This policy is online in our current guide to accreditation. It's not in this chart, but it is expressed in through just a different narrative form. So once NAACLS is notified that a program director is leaving, NAACLS staff will identify the chair of the program, a dean, or an identified lab administrator for the contact of the program. This is something we do already, so there's always somebody at that program that we can reach out to if we have questions. This is where it starts getting a little new. Programs are then given 6 months to provide a qualified candidate from that date of notification. If a program is unable to provide a qualified candidate after 6 months, they are required to submit evidence of an active search. So you either need to put forth a candidate with materials to review, or if you are unable to have somebody that applied that qualifies for the job, we at least want to see evidence if there's an active search. So let's start on the left in blue to follow that kind of that path of what happens in this circumstance. So once a program provides that evidence of an active search, the program is given an extra 6 month time to find a qualified candidate. After 6 months, if the program is unable to find a qualified candidate, the program is cited under a standard 7A, I believe, which we just changed that standard to kind of coordinate. It wasn't even, standard change is a bit extreme. We just kind of reorganized some of the language in that standard, which you'll see in a little bit, to help assist in this process administratively. So the program is standard under a revised standard 7. The program, like any other time a program is cited, they will have a chance to respond to that citation with a qualified candidate. If the program is still unable to respond to that citation with a qualified candidate after that 6 months, so we're about 18 months in at this time, that program will be then put on probation. The program this becomes more of a board decision about how long the program has to submit a basically another progress report in response to their probation. I would think that would be between 3 and 6 months. So now we're talking about between 19 months to 24 months without a qualified program director. And then obviously the worst case scenario is involuntary withdrawal of a program, which nobody wants to see that happen, and we don't expect that to happen. But once we start talking about getting programs into probation, then we're starting to follow kind of our standard policy of what happens. You enter probation, you have a chance for a progress report, and then the decision comes up to the board with how to handle it after that. So that's kind of what happens if a program provides evidence of an active search and is unable to find or get a program director approved after that point. So let's say the program director does not provide evidence of an active search or a qualified candidate. They don't respond, or the candidate they put forth isn't somebody who NAACLS would consider qualified. They don't really have any of the qualifications we're looking for as stated in the standard. Then the program is cited immediately under a standard 7 instead of giving that extra 6 months of grace time. And after that, the policy is very similar to if a program does provide proof of an active search. They're cited, they are required to provide a progress report, which for this example, that progress report would be regarding a qualified candidate. If they don't submit the qualified candidate, then they put on probation. When you're on probation, you have a chance to offer a progress report. And if that progress report is still unsatisfactory, then the discussion about involuntary withdrawal will take place. So again, these are extreme circumstances that will happen very rarely, if ever. But kind of back to the top of the discussion, the fact that we didn't have a set policy just led to confusion from programs perspective as well as staff. So in corresponding with that, there will be a standard change. The standard change was approved immediately because the board did not feel it was a substantive change. So what you see on the left is the language that had been in the standard since I believe 2012, where under the qualifications, you will see this section, it's not going to highlight for me, but under qualifications, you will see this section that says the program director must be a medical laboratory professional who. So we've taken that language and expanded it a little bit and put it right under 7A. So it's not under qualifications anymore. It's just directly under standard 7A, where it says the program director must have a NAACLS approved medical laboratory professional serving as a program director who meets the following qualifications and executes all required responsibilities. So the reason we did this is because really it just helps make a cleaner citation if we need to, which makes sense to the program, and it's cleaner from an administrative process. So if a program director, instead of waiting to see if a program director or a program submitted a potential individual that may have had some of the qualifications, but not all the qualifications, which would have led to extended discussions about whether it's a partial or a full citation, by moving the language, it allowed, which was really more the intent of the citation from the board, is to just say, you don't have a qualified program director, which is a requirement. Here's your citation. So yeah, I think I covered the items in blue already. This is a lot of kind of administrative juggling for something that I don't think we'll have to enact all that often, but we did want to take this opportunity to alert the public of this change. This is our last item. Maribeth or Russ, did you have anything to echo on that or add in on that?
I did not. No.
Put you on the spot? Okay. So now we'll go to our general Q&A. As a reminder, this Q&A can be about the policies that the board just put forth that you saw today, or can go to any direction as possible. We're very lucky that our current board president, Maribeth, has extensive experience not only as a board member, but she was an RCAP member, she was an RCAP chair, and a program director, so, and a very active reviewer. So it's a unique opportunity for somebody with this much experience to be on the call. Also, before we get into question and answers, just to remember, we have DLPs who are always available to answer your questions. These are, DLP stands for Discipline Lead Person, and these are all members of either PARC, RCAP, or the DRC that are there to assist with standard interpretation. So NAACLS staff has an expertise in policy and procedures and accreditation policies and procedures. And for some of us like me who have been around forever, we can kind of let you know how committees in the past have discussed items for very commonly discussed items, but it really comes to the experts in standard interpretation. These are the people you want to contact. And then just a real brief disclaimer, they're more than happy to help with standard interpretation, but their role, since they are volunteers, their role isn't to, you know, give a once over for a self-study or a progress report, which they're occasionally asked to do. So if you do have questions for them, try to keep the scope a little bit narrow so they don't cross the line into advising you in larger issues of your program. And with that, feel free to type a question in the chat or raise your hand and I will allow you to talk. And you can ask a question on the microphone. Okay, we have, oh, someone put their hand up and down. Oh, it's back up again. Pat. All right, Pat, you've been allowed to talk. You should be able to unmute and go ahead and ask your question. There you go.
Okay, you just mentioned the discipline lead people, and I was just wondering if there was more ways to advertise that these people exist, because I do site visits, and every once in a while I find that the program director or possibly even a team member does not know about the discipline lead people. So I guess I have one question or one possibility, especially any information that goes out when someone is starting the reaccreditation process, that these discipline lead people would be mentioned in the information.
That's a good idea. Let me take a note right now.
And possibly you could just have more Dr. NAACLS questions or something or other. I don't think that, I mean, I think there's probably a lot of program directors who don't participate in these things or don't read the NAACLS updates. No. And so I think getting it right in front of them with anything that pertains especially to them and their program would be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. I do know that the workshop that we just had on Friday featured information from DLPs, and there was a DLP plug in that workshop. Out before all of these, we try to mention DLPs, but we can certainly look into mentioning in our notification of renewal when programs are alerted they have a self-study due that DLPs exist. I think in the letters that we sent to initial program directors, we mentioned the DLPs, but we can certainly look at ways we can put in more information. I'm always accused of writing too much, so I don't want to overwhelm people, but this may be important enough that we do want to make sure we find ways to know that these resources are available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Any other questions, comments? All right. We had one very nice note of thanks from Barbara in the chat. Thank you, Barbara. But I'm not seeing any more questions. I don't want to cut people off if you have questions, but I also, oh, hand up from Pat again. Go ahead, Pat. You have to unmute first.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so I'll ask one other question that I've kind of been pondering, and maybe I should have just asked Maribeth first or something, but a couple of years ago, we actually transferred a histotech program that was going to be closed into our MLS program and offer it as a certificate program. And I just thought it was a great way to salvage a histotech program that was going to be lost. And I was just wondering if there was some way that anytime a program approaches NAACLS and says, you know, they want to be put on hold, if some kind of a process like this could be started to say, is there some other program that your program could be transferred to? Just, you know, be something a little more proactive and help them. They've probably already think they've exhausted all the efforts that are possible to salvage their program, but maybe they don't know about transferring.
I do think in some of I would have to go through some of the materials that we send out when programs are talking about closing. I mean, obviously we do want to walk them through to see if there's any other possibilities. I do think we have some documents that talk about other options, including transfer of sponsorship. We still try to keep it very, very general. So I don't know if it's in that specific circumstance. Pat, you always know I'm looking for content for the NAACLS news. So if you want to write something up about as an example of what to do, we could maybe even look into featuring some information on that. But yeah, I do know advocacy is part of the strategic plan that the board just enacted in April 2021. So we can maybe look at making sure applying some of what you did there and to make sure that if there aren't those level of advocacies for closing programs, maybe add that.
Yeah, it's also an example of innovation too, which we're trying to grab examples and promote. So yeah, thanks, Pat.
You're welcome.
One question in the chat. At the end of this week, I have my first site visit as a PD. I've been a PD for a year. Our previous MLS accreditation was in 2014. We had a very successful self-study earlier this summer, but my nerves are high. Any tips or suggestions how to make it through this week? Any suggestions of last-minute things to check that are commonly overlooked? This is all from Maribeth.
Thanks. Yeah, and Katrina, all I can say is just relax. The thing that I love about NAACLS is it is so collaborative. So your site visitors are not coming in with the mission of finding something wrong, right? They're, the eyes and ears of NAACLS. They're looking at, do you comply with the standards? And they're gonna, if they don't find something, if they don't see that you're meeting a certain standard, they're gonna ask you, can you show me evidence of, whatever you're doing? Or, I don't see an affiliation agreement for this affiliate. They're going to work with you. And hopefully you've worked with the site visit lead the last couple of weeks, because they will have looked through your self-study, and they're going to be looking for other documents. And hopefully, although if they haven't, it doesn't mean that everything's going to go badly. I don't want you to worry. But hopefully they've told you, okay, I need to see X and X because it's something that isn't in the self-study, so that you can have it ready. But just relax. It should be, a learning experience, right? You've looked at your program, you've looked at the standards, and you think that you have the evidence. They will, if they don't see it, they're going to ask you for it. And what I found too is that if they still don't think that it satisfies the standard, they'll say, if you could, rewrite this one form so it says this, or, something that fits your program too. They'll help work with you so that they can leave without any concerns. That's the goal. But even if they do leave and they leave with some concerns and you have some citations, you then have time to put together the documentation that shows that that you satisfy the standard. So after they submit the report, you will have, I think, 30 days to submit a response. And in that response, you can say, oh yeah, sorry, we didn't have, evidence that our curriculum contains blood banking. I don't know. And so here is the evidence, here's our curriculum, here's the course schedule and the syllabus for blood banking. And then when the review committee members look at everything, they'll see that you're completely in compliance. So it's really a process. And what I like is that it is a process, because other accrediting bodies, you submit the document and then that's the record, or the document of record, and you can't change it. So if you forgot to submit something that shows your compliance, too bad, so sad, it's an automatic citation. You don't have an opportunity to correct it. But NAACLS gives you lots of opportunities, lots of review points, so that you will be compliant, as much as possible. I mean, sometimes things happen and you just don't have those things in place, but I would say relax. Yeah, get to know, talk to the team. They're there as colleagues. They're not your enemies. They're not out there to get you, because their program looks better if yours looks worse. It's nothing like that at all. So I hope that helped. Have fun. Go have a drink when you're done.
The only thing I'll echo, and I apologize if you said this already, Maribeth, my computer froze up for a little bit, but it may be a little too soon, or you may be on the verge of your site visit a little too quick, but we make our site visit form that our reviewers use available to our program directors. We're not here to play got you. We're not here to surprise you with what are the requirements. And to be honest, if NAACLS staff is doing our job, the site visit review form should look almost exactly like what the standard compliance guide looks like for required site visit items, to the point where it's just a very slight rewording of phrasing. So, but we do make that site, the same site visit form your reviewers will have is available on our website. It may be buried a little bit in our documents link, which is not a, it's, you can't make everything completely available to the on the homepage, otherwise nothing's available. So, but yeah, if you can't find that document on the website, contact staff and we can email you that site visit document if that will give you any more peace of mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good luck. It's not as bad as having a baby. I'll say that.
Put that on our business card from here on out. That's a good one.
Accreditation is not as bad.
Any other questions from the chat? You can drop them in or raise your hand. While I wait for a little bit, I see that we have some volunteers and even some representatives from all of our committees on right now. So thank you for A, volunteering, and B, jumping on to check out the board update.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we couldn't do what we do without peer review. And peer review, I just think is critical to an accreditation process. And I don't think that we should be paying people to review. It's just a completely different philosophy that I don't think is compatible with accreditation. So thank you to our peer reviewers. It takes time to do this, but hopefully you do it because you learn something.
Okay, well, I didn't see any questions come through, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this call up. Thank you again for everybody for taking the time to, oh, wait a minute, we have something. In regards to the new PD vacancy policy, does this apply to programs who have an interim PD? This is a very good question. So when we're talking about a vacancy policy, that means nobody who qualified as either a full-time or the designated temporary program directors, which interim program director would be, and acting, I believe, is the other one. I don't have the sheet right in front of me, but when you fill out your program director approval form, there are check boxes of whether you are the full-time program director or whether you're applying as the acting program director. And I believe there's another one with, and there's a third one that I'm missing off the top of my head. But those
program
three.
Supervisor with consultants, I think.
There we go. Thank you, Russ. Yeah, program supervisor with consultant. So if you are approved as any of those three, for the sake of the PD vacancy policy, you are an approved program director. Now, those temporary positions with the supervisor and the acting, those have an end date where you'll have to reapply. That doesn't change. But if you are one of those official temporary designations, this policy does not apply to you. You have somebody approved, even if it is on a temporary basis, in place. So you don't have to worry about this 6-month thing on top of that. You only have to worry about the length of those temporary positions. That's a good question, Janine. Anything else? It's happened all at the workshop too. About the time I was going to wrap something up, somebody popped through with a really good question at the last second. Okay, hearing none or seeing none, I will wrap up the call. Thanks to everybody who logged on to ask a question or just listen. And again, if you have any other questions after this, staff is always around and the DLPs are there to try to help you through the process. Oh, before I sign off, next month, we haven't set the date yet, but next month we are previewing the pre-CLEC March workshop. CLEC is in March this year, not in February. So we'll have the presenters for that available to just give a quick overview of what will be presented at that workshop, and then also do a Q&A session as always. So I'm hoping we will have the dates ready for that by the end of the week. If not, as soon as we have the dates ready for that, it'll be posted on the NAACLS news. All right, have a good afternoon, everyone.